Hello, this is Steve San Angelo from the SRS Rock Report with the new YouTube video. Peak silver mine supply is now being impacted by rising demand. And I believe large future annual silver deficits will just mean higher prices. Now, according to the Silver Institute, Metals Focus puts out the supply and demand. We've seen, if you look up here in 2016, mine supply has been continued to decline. Even though gold production, I'll show you, gold production is still increasing. But we've had such a large increase in silver industrial demand. It's put a pinch on supplies, especially with rising silver investment demand. So we've seen these deficits, and they have impacted above ground inventories. Now, I put this chart out. This is silver industrial demand in gray and versus global mine supply. And basically, the top of the bars is global silver mine supply, peaked in 2016 at 900 million, and it has been going down. It came off the lows of the pandemic shutdown, but it's been moving sideways. And as you can see, according to Metals Focus, there's going to be 710 million ounces of industrial demand, which means there's only 113 million ounces left over from mine supply. Now there's also scrap supply, but I wanted to show you this dynamic because when you look at this next chart, we could see from 2010 that silver industrial demand as a percentage of world silver mine supply was 67%. It declined as production increased. But then look what's happened. As of 2024, the forecast is industrial demand is going to consume 86% of global mine supply. And I think this number is going to increase. It's probably going to be hitting 90%. So when we see a return of investment demand, this could really impact the deficits and the price. And we've seen that already because in 2022, we had a lot of investment demand in the United States. Also, Indian demand really increased, and that pulled the LBMA inventories lower. Not only their overall inventories, but the ETF inventories declined that were being held in London. And it's been fluctuating, but we see in December another 23 million. Now, there are unreported or untransparent above ground silver inventories, but I believe those are being drawn down as well because we'll know that the market is getting tighter when the LBMA drops below 800 million ounces in the next year or so. And I think that is coming. Now, talking about peak silver, I do believe we have seen peak silver. I did this chart in 2020, and what it shows is total world silver production from 1493 all the way to 2020. Each bar is about 100 years, and it shows you in millions of ounces. So in the first half of 1990, the world produced about 10.3 billion ounces of silver. And the reason why it really increased had to do with the world bringing on oil production. That just allowed us and coal to mine and smelt a lot more silver that we couldn't do before. And then in the next 50 years, it jumped again to 17 billion ounces. Now, if we look in just the past 20 years, from 2000 to 2020, we're already at 15 billion ounces. So it just goes to show you how much more silver we have been producing in the last 20 years compared to the last 50. Now, this information, the older information from 1493, from the early 1900s, came from the summarized data of silver production from the U.S. Department of Commerce, Bureau of Mines. It was printed back in 1930. Look at the price was 20 cents, so you could see the inflation now. But the data in it is pretty good. And of course, some of it is estimates, but they had pretty good data of Mexican, with the Spanish producing Mexico silver production, even South American production. So the data is pretty accurate. And so if we look up to date as of 2024, it increased to 18.3 billion. So in just 24 years, in the last 24 years, it surpassed the total in the previous 50 years. And this is the total so far, 54.7 billion ounces. Now, what we need to realize, all the silver that was produced in ancient Greece and Rome, most of that's gone. That's gone. And there's been reports showing that even in more modern times, let's say in the late 1800s to the 1900s, the world lost about 1 billion ounces of silver coinage. And Americans we're losing millions and millions of dollars of coins every year. It's just lost, thrown away. And that's the problem. And so even though there was a lot of silver produced in earlier years, most of that is gone. So this also needs to be understood. Now, to get an idea of what future production is going to look like, I'm using a chart from Jean Leherrera. He was an oil geologist for Total for like 3 decades, and he continues to update this chart. And what he's showing basically here, the brown line is the cumulative, what he believes is going to be how much total production there was ever going to be since the 1490. And it's about 2.5 million metric tons. And so the decline has already started to happen. And he made this chart from this information. It's called the Hubbard linearization of world silver production. And it fluctuated, but now it's moving down. And the line it's moving down towards is the 2.5 million metric tons. So when you put it in this chart, this is what the production is going to look like. It's an estimate, of course. I believe it's pretty accurate. So when you take that data, this is what I believe. And the production on the right-hand side in the red could be even worse. And so we're going to reach about 19.2 billion ounces of silver when we include this year, 2025. So in just 25 years, we surpassed the past 50 in just half the time. And this is, again, by bringing on more oil, more coal. But as time goes on, production is going to start declining even more rapidly. Now, this isn't a secret, because if we go back and look in history during ancient Rome, there's been pretty good data on about how much silver was produced at the peak of the Roman Empire, which was between 50 BC and 100 AD. The Romans were producing, on average, about 200 metric tons a year. Not a lot in today's standards, but back then it was quite a bit. And we could see the decline. And what's interesting, the decline happened at the same time the Roman emperors also had put less silver in the silver denarius. So they weren't debasing the silver coins just because they were bored. They were debasing the silver coins because they had less and less silver. And we could see from that 50 BC to 100 AD, they were producing about 200 metric tons of silver a year. And there was about 90% silver in the coins. And then 100 to 200 AD, we see it fell in half. And then from 200 on, it was only 30 metric tons a year. And so the reason we could see the content of the silver in the Roman denarius fell along with the mine production. So there was a reason why mine production fell. It was due to the massive amount of wood that was needed in either the late Bronze Age, during the Greek Empire, when they produced a lot of silver, and also the Roman Empire. Up until the 1800s, that's when we switched to coal to smelt metals. But we used wood, made charcoal, so we had to cut down forests. And unfortunately, the forest clearance in Europe collapsed after we could see it collapsed in the 200s. And this was the falling EROI of wood fuel production in the Roman Empire, which to me was one of the main reasons why the collapse of the Roman Empire. They didn't run out of silver ore, because we're still producing a lot of silver. They ran out of high quality wood to produce silver. Now, if we look at this chart, this is an interesting chart because silver, it seems like it's already peaked. And we could see that in 2016, it hit a high of 900 million ounces. We had the pandemic shutdown. It's come up. But I'm suggesting that 2023, it's lower than what the World Silver Survey shows. And I'll show you in a minute because Mexican silver production may be actually much lower than what was reported. But according to the World Gold Council and their data, we're probably going to see a new high in gold production, about 119 million ounces, while silver production continues to slowly grind lower. Now, I say that I think Mexican silver production is much lower because if you go to the Mexican INEGI website, this is the same thing as the USGS or US Geological Survey, that you could download and get the data. And if you look at the end of 2020, they had 5,605 metric tons of silver production, and you multiply that into million ounces, it's 180.2. Well, look at that. That's exactly what the World Silver Survey reported. So we know where the World Silver Survey is getting their information. And then we look at 2021, it's 196. Well, that's exactly what Mexico had reported. Now, they said that production was only going to be 199, but according to Mexico, it jumped up, and they did bring on more mines. Several mines came on at one time. It went up to 213.2, and sure enough, that's exactly what the 2024 World Silver Survey showed for 2022. 213.2 million ounces came right from the Mexican INEGI website. Now, they said that it was going to decline in 23 to 202, but look what Mexico is showing. Now, this is their information. I'm sharing it, and they show right here, they revised it. Now, it's a year-old data. I would be surprised if this data it would be revised much higher because they had a whole year to revise this figure. It's 181.8. It's 30 million ounces less. So I'm just sharing the data that they have. So I think the World Silver Survey is going to have to readjust this because the large Newmont's Penasquito mine shut down for more than half the year, and there was a lot of silver production, and some other mines lost production as well. And if you take their data, this is the Mexican silver production going back from 2016, and we could see this was the Penasquito mine. Actually, this is the pandemic. Pandemic was right here. This is the Penasquito mine, and what's happened now is production still continues to roll over. And this was the peak in 2022. Now, the problem with silver mining is that it's taking a lot more mines to produce the same amount of production. Like this, Fresnillo has three primary silver mines. The Fresnillo mine that has been producing since about the 1500s, the Saucito mine that they brought on about 2010, and then the San Julian mine that they brought on about 2016, ramped it up. So in 2008, one mine, the Fresnillo mine, was producing 33.5 million ounces all by itself. Now with three mines, they're producing only 38.6. You see, this becomes more expensive because if you look at how many the workforce to produce a little bit more silver, this is the workforce, and this is mine workers. It was about 1,561 mine workers. Now it's getting close to 10,000 mine workers. And if we go back, it takes almost 10,000 mine workers to produce 38.6 million ounces, where it only took about 1,500 workers to produce 33.5. This is the reason why we're seeing higher costs across the board to produce silver. Now, interestingly, Fresnillo they're saying in their presentation that production is going to start to decline. And I don't think 2024 is going to be much higher than it was last year. It's probably going to be about the same, but they've got declines coming in from some of their mines. So the largest silver producer in the world in Mexico is forecasting between an 8 and 10% million ounce decline in the next few years. So I wanted to share that information. Peak silver, I believe, is here. Even if we get much higher silver prices, I don't think it's going to be able to bring on much more supply because there's just not enough high enough margins for the silver miners we add enough new mines. And there's been a good dozen new mines that have been added in the last about 8 to 10 years, but production has continued to decline. So I hope you found this information interesting, and please check out the SRS Rock Report website. Have a good day.